up, y'all? Ashley Robinson here with Progress Georgia. Today, we are going to talk about the anniversary that wasn't. We are going into what would have been the 50th anniversary of the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Roe v. Wade. But unfortunately, after last year's decision, Dobbs' decision that was stricken down, we're going to talk a little today about what that means still for reproductive justice, for the advocates, for those that are working hard on this issue, but also what it means for Georgians and for our state. And so I'm so happy to be joined today with Alicia Stallworth, who is the Southeast Campaigns Director with NARAL Pro-Choice Georgia. And so, Alicia, we go back to about like 2018.
Yes.
And during election season in 18. But I want the people to know a little who you are. So I'm going to read a little bit of your bio, and then we're going to get into some of the questions. So a South Florida native, where exactly are you from in South Florida?
I'm from a small town outside of West Palm Beach, Florida, called Clisson, Florida, which is like one of the sugar capitals of the United States, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Small town girl originally.
Okay. And she's an accomplished political strategist, Democratic political strategist with over 10 years of experience in community organizing, coalition building, which is not easy, and communications. And so, Alicia, you previously served as the Georgia State Director for Planned Parenthood Southeast.
Yes.
So, and we'll get into like what are the differences between NARAL and Planned Parenthood, but all groups honestly are doing such amazing work in the space. And oversaw PPSCs, and that's the acronym, y'all, for Planned Parenthood Southeast. Oversaw the organization's advocacy and electoral efforts in the state. And then you led that team to help secure some really big electoral victories across the state in 2020, 21. Those were some really big years for us here in the state when it came to voting and having to go into a runoff and then going into another runoff. But really, your work was so instrumental in helping to elect some of those reproductive freedom champions up and down the ballot. And so now you're the woman that's in charge in NARAL's Georgia chapter, and is really a force to be reckoned with. So I'm actually really excited to have this conversation because not only is Alicia so dope, but she's the expert and knows everything there is to know about this, and is one of the key leaders that's at the state capitol that's working on these issues around reproductive rights and freedom and justice. And so, tell us a little bit about who NARAL is.
I think you hyped me up more.
I know. I'm your hype man.
I'm
your hype man.
I'm used to, I'm just a humble servant to the people. But you know what? I like the way that you framed, like, a lot of the work that we do is definitely rooted in community and within community, but also in community with other organizations.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's how I try to always show up. But when I think about who is NARAL,
Mm-hmm.
like, I like to say that, well, I don't, because it's a NARAL phrase, is that we don't operate or litigate, we mobilize and organize. So I think that is like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, I love that. Like, I'm writing this down and I'm using it because that's the biggest distinction between NARAL and Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is an organization that delivers services, and then you have Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates, which is their C4 arm, and they are the organization that does a lot of the advocacy, pink out the halls. And also Planned Parenthood engages in the litigation fights. Like, they are the ones that are on the front lines.
That's good to know. That's good to know the distinction between the groups in that way.
That's definitely the biggest distinction, is that we don't have any clinics. And we don't litigate, but we are also a member-based organization. Over the past year since I've been at NARAL, I came in, we were at 2.5 million members nationally. Now we're at over 4 million members. In Georgia alone, when I started, NARAL had 52,000 members. Now we're at 85,000 members.
Okay, now.
So, I mean,
Georgia's showing up. I see. Okay.
Always, when you have the right people, and you're in community, you're doing the people's work, I think people notice that and they want to be a part of that and they want to know how they can help.
Yeah. What are the other groups? Who are some of the other groups that y'all are kind of in coalition with? And I know we're going to get into some of the legislative work that y'all are doing together, but Who are some of the other groups that that you all kind of work very closely with?
So we've already mentioned Planned Parenthood Southeast, Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates, and then we have the Amplify Georgia Collaborative, which houses our reproductive justice partners.
That's
And
amazing.
so within that, you know, you have your Sister Song, you have
Mhm.
Spark, you have Sister Love, Women Engaged, Feminist Women's Health Center,
Yep.
and all of you also have Urge
Okay.
as well, and all of those organizations are housed under the Amplify Georgia Collaborative,
Okay.
which is like basically the think of it as the holding table, the table for
Nice.
the RJ groups.
Okay.
And we do a lot of work in concert. And then they also do work separately as well because, you know, they're also individual organizations. But it makes the fight for reproductive freedom that much easier when you're able to come in community
As a
together
force,
and
right.
coalition.
Yep.
It just makes the work so much lighter.
I can't think of a group, a coalition, work group, whatever you want to kind of call this coalition of groups that have come together. Y'all are some badasses. Like, y'all work really, really hard. Like, seriously.
Yeah, like I said this to someone the other day, like reproductive freedom work, reproductive justice work, reproductive rights is not for the lighthearted. Because like you don't get a day off.
Yes.
Like everyone wants to attack you personally. Like it's no game.
Yeah.
It's like I just want to be able to decide what to do with my body. Like this is my body.
And also too, when we talk about these champions and we talk about these groups that are doing this work, it isn't easy doing this type of work in a state like Georgia.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Because you know, we understand what Georgia still is. I mean, the broader public may look at it and they think Atlanta is Georgia, but Georgia is still Georgia. I mean, we can say it like that and we get it. Like, Georgia is still Georgia. You know, you still have those really deep racist areas of Georgia, you know, and that's the reality of the place that we live. Yes, it's shifting. Yes, it's changing. But there's still so much work left to be done.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is a really perfect kind of dovetail into, okay, we know Georgia is Georgia. States now have, you know, rights to figure out kind of what they want to do when it comes to abortion access and rights. So do we still have Roe, or is it practically gone? Like what's going on with that?
There's no Roe.
I know that, but I gotta set the question up.
I know.
Because the people want to know, do we have Roe? No, we
I
don't.
mean, there's no Roe. And I mean, and our reproductive justice partners have been saying this for years. Roe has always been the floor.
Yeah.
Roe has just honestly made abortion care accessible for like white women.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that because that's what the reality is. Like Roe has always been the floor.
Yeah.
People of color, people in rural areas have always had a struggle when it comes to accessing abortion care. So Roe is the floor. Like, and that is no longer here because of anti-choice politicians have made it even much more harder for people to access the reproductive care that they desire.
Yeah, yeah. And also thinking about that too, in a state like Georgia where we haven't even expanded Medicaid.
No.
So we've got hospital closures. We've got folks that have to drive hours to get care, health care. How does that how does that impact the reproductive justice and access space too?
I mean, it impacts it tremendously. And I have to name that Georgia only has one abortion fund here in the entire state of Georgia. And so that means that now people who are wanting to seek care, and I say people because it's not just women.
Sure, right.
We have to name that too and use more inclusive terms.
Yep.
And these individuals now have to worry about how do they travel to North Carolina? How do they travel to South Carolina or Florida? Because Tennessee has a complete ban. And Florida has 15-week ban. And I was doing something today and I was like trying to see where would Abortion Finder put me. Abortion Finder is a website that we send people to figure out exactly where could they go access their care.
And is that abortionfinder.org, .com, or?
Abortion Finder, I want to say it's .com.
Okay.
I really hope so.
Just Google it, y'all.
Yeah, Google it, y'all. Sorry. Actually, yes. And so So with Abortion Finder, like you go in there and now they've updated the site. It asks you, and this has been since Roe,
Okay.
like when was your last menstrual cycle?
Mm.
And so,
How smart is that?
oh, I know.
How smart is that to even point you in the right direction now?
Exactly.
Because I need to know kind of where you are and the level of care that you need. So, okay.
So
yeah.
you're not wasting your time.
So you're not wasting your time, right?
And so like I think I put like a late December date, and it was telling me I was pregnant. In my heart, I got like scared, and I was like, "No, this is not happening to you. You're fine." But I could only imagine how someone could feel, because it has to tell you, okay, you're past the 15-week mark. Let's say, for example. So now you will no longer go to Florida. You have to go to South Carolina. You know, and those are like the option that it gives you based upon like when you may have missed your menstrual period.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Wow. So thinking about the state of abortion access, I don't know
I know so many questions.
But I think even you talking about the when did you have your last menstrual period? Like it just kind of puts it in perspective.
And we know as women that we may miss our menstrual cycle for anything. And I am comfortable sharing, this is like part of my personal story, is that I suffer from uterine fibroids. And with uterine fibroids, which are tumors within my uterus, like my periods are all over the place.
Sure, yeah.
Like sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. Like, and that is why for me, especially, and people like me, and when you think about Black women, especially who suffer from uterine fibroids, that's like, I think the last statistic was like 1 in 4 Black women have some type of fibroids in their body.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that number is here in Georgia. But we can go even further and talk about the maternal mortality rate.
Right.
But to have these discussions about abortion care and access, you know, it's just so heartbreaking, and it's cruel. It's cruel to people as individuals.
Yeah. So you mentioned the access that we may have. So let's talk a little bit about access that we currently have in Georgia. We've got the 6-week ban. What else is part of?
So we have the 6-week abortion ban, which practically eliminates the ability to get an abortion in Georgia. And then we have about 13 other provisions that are on the books that makes it harder for people to access the reproductive care. So, you know, you have to wait like 24 hours to make an appointment. They have forced ultrasounds. They have something that's on the book that is like a right to privacy, which forces people who are setting up the appointments to give out inaccurate medical information.
Wow.
Like when you have the schools and you have doctors and you have Emory and all these other medical facilities coming out and saying that this isn't medically accurate, why are we forcing people to give out this information? They have a problem. And it's all politically motivated. I mean, we understand, we know that, but the average person doesn't know that. This is rooted in politics and their own personal agenda.
And so what about you know, just aside from the procedure, then the access to the pill? Like what's that like here in Georgia?
And the anti-choice politicians, they operate in confusion. They want you to be confused. They want you to not be clear on what you can and cannot do. Because once again, they win. I mean, the Biden administration made it legal for pharmacies to dispense the pill. These are medical professionals. But because we are here in Georgia and we have a 6-week abortion ban with all of these other loopholes, there's, as of now, we don't foresee that being a possibility. Of course, this has just happened. And some pharmacists we have spoken to and heard from, they're just like, they don't even want to take the risk. Because like they are afraid of their licenses. And like, how do they make sure that people are not over 6 weeks? Because 6 weeks is nothing. So like, do they have to come in with something from their doctor? Like, how do you go about even doing that process?
Right. So where can someone go if they need care?
So, of course, like, we tell people to go to abortion finder. I think it's .org now.
Okay, okay, okay.
Or
Okay, it's
we
.org. We got a thumbs
also,
up.
yay!
It's
We also have a
.org.
really great resource here in Georgia.
Mhm.
We always say abortion is still legal in Georgia.
Mhm.
Abortion is still legal in
Yeah.
Georgia.com. That is ran by Amplify Georgia Collaborative. And on that website, we have
Okay.
resources. They have information about the abortion fund, where the clinics are, the 15 clinics that we do have in
Okay,
Georgia.
15 clinics.
Although
Okay.
I feel like it may be 14 because one in Savannah actually closed within a few months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, again, it's just letting you
Yeah,
know how the landscape is
that's
changing,
right. Yeah.
not just for people accessing care, but for people providing the care.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think we will see like a huge shift when it comes to people coming to Georgia to like learn,
Yeah.
who want to be gynecologists, because this is a part of their academic, structure. So like
Yeah.
now, what are they supposed to do? Yeah, maybe it's the sophomore
Mhm.
in me.
So talk to me about like, okay, we just kind of went through, obviously we had the runoff, but
Mhm.
elections are huge here in Georgia and we are winning them or losing them on the margins. Um how is reproductive justice and rights like layered with voting rights? Because y'all were really big like during the SB 202. And for those of y'all that don't know, SB 202 is like the big voting omnibus bill, the 96-page bill that really was a big overhaul
Mhm.
of our election law. Um, h- how why does reproductive justice and rights, like why do y'all feel like that's important for y'all to get into the voting rights fight as well?
I mean, because ultimately, voting rights is at the most fundamental core of us being able to access all of these other rights,
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ plus rights, civil rights. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't have voting rights, like all of our other rights are at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, how can we elect reproductive champions, these people who are going to make these policies and fight
Mm-hmm.
against these horrific bills, as well as propose progressive legislation to
Yeah.
protect reproductive freedom
Yeah.
if we don't have voting rights?
That's
Because
right.
once again, we can't elect those people. Like, that at its core and most simplest form is like, without voting rights, all of our other rights are at risk.
Mm.
And I will say that is why NARAL was one of the first like organizations that came out within the reproductive rights and justice space and was like, we're gonna take back some of these endorsements.
Yeah.
And we may have to burn some bridges along the way. But if you all don't come out in favor of these bills federally,
Mm-hmm.
we're unafraid to take that gamble.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
needed
powerful.
because like you need to stand for something. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, not you bringing out the old
I'm just
school.
saying.
So, I was thinking back to the night where the Dobbs decision came down, and I was
Mm,
actually in DC that night.
really?
Yeah, and I met up. I was in town for Emily's List was hosting their gala,
Yeah.
and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. It was actually quite surreal, but I met up with a good friend of mine, Christian Wood. Shout out to
Yeah,
Christian.
Chris.
Yeah, shout out to Chris. Um, and just being in the space of the energy
Hmm.
and every person, like every walk of life. Not also this is DC
Of
too, right?
course. Yes.
So, but like folks are just really passionate about what this means for our country, what this means for the future of our states, what this is mean for the future of young people. And I have a younger sister; she's 21 years old, and now my sister, she be trying to keep me hip to stuff. I mean, even the fact that I just said hip lets
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah,
kind of where
yeah.
I'm at. But she keeps me, I think, really grounded on like the things that she's just kind of faced with and the things that they really, really care about. Like young people really care about what's going on in the
Yeah.
country. They really are moved by um, how politicians, vote or like what corporations are doing with their social and corporate accountability.
Yeah.
And so thinking about just people and how folks are even thinking about the reversal of Roe. Have y'all done any polling, or is there any polling or anything that can suggest like how folks even in Georgia are feeling about it? I know Progress Georgia specifically, we did
Yeah.
some polling sometime early last year, and we asked a lot of like Black men just about what they feel about Roe. And as much as we thought that we would get like some pretty indifferent answers, folks in our focus groups and also in our polling were just not with it. They
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I know the AJC also dropped a poll.
To clarify, when you say they were not with it, they were not with the reversal of Roe, right?
Right.
We'll make sure that people are with us.
Yes.
Okay,
Not with the
okay.
reversal
'Cause
of
I thought
Roe.
about it.
Yeah.
I thought something
But
different.
it
Okay,
was,
good.
and it polled as one of our top 3 issues.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I just shared that it was June the 24th. I think the decision came down, or 26th. I think it's
Yeah.
24th. When the decision came down, like we've been saying for a while that because at once Trump picked his judges, we kind of knew what was forthcoming, right? And we had some sense, but it still was like a piece of
Mhm.
you like, nah, like
Mhm.
maybe it's really not going to happen. And so at the end of year, how Spotify does like this yearly
Yeah.
recap.
Your year
Do
in
you
review.
know
Right.
what my most played song on what day was? You
What
Won't
was it?
Break My Soul
Stop
by
it!
Beyonce
Yes!
on that day. And I was like, what happened to it? And I'm like, it makes perfect sense. Because I
I
was just
love
like,
that.
I am not going to be in this grief era.
I
I
know that's
I
right.
need to figure out what is next. Like we
Yeah.
were kind of planning it and we knew,
Mhm.
but it's like, okay, so I know we're gonna have a rally. I know we're gonna have to like find some actual call to actions is gonna move people
Yeah.
and make people feel like they're actually involved in this work. But yeah, I had to share that
Yeah.
because I was just like, well,
I love knowing that about you on that day that's all you
oh
played.
yeah, that's all I played. Like it was just on repeat.
Yeah.
And it gave me energy and it gave me the light
Mhm.
that I needed. I don't know about these tickets
Shout out
that
to the
just went
Bay
on
Hive
sale.
and shout out to Beyonce, and the tickets are on sale, or you have to reserve your
Sorry, you gotta
tickets.
reserve this whole thing.
I am in Group A, and
I signed up for Group A and Group B. But
Wait, you know what? We're gonna talk offline about that because I don't even know how
Okay.
you got to do 2.
We'll see.
Okay, and that's some trickery
We'll
and some
see what
magic,
happens.
and I don't know if I
No,
appreciate it.
no. We'll see what happens.
But
You know-
so I pulled up this polling data, and we did our poll
Yeah.
in conjunction with Brilliant Corners, and so shout out to Cornell.
Okay.
But when we ranked the issues and concerns, 69% of our sporadic voters listed protecting women's reproductive health freedoms as one of their top 3 issues. And then 71% of sporadic voters in Georgia said they oppose the overturning of Roe, with 66 being in strong opposition. And then 76% of our sporadic voters said that overturning Roe makes them more likely to vote. And then here's the part about Black men too.
Mhm.
And I know Black men were like a big topic of discussion during the 22 election.
Throughout.
But in our poll, we also, our Black men, part of our poll were sporadic voters, and 72% of them strongly opposed the overturning as well. And y'all did a poll across the battleground states, and I don't know if it was, I think it was during the election cycle.
Yeah, we definitely did it during the election cycle. And we did ours with, I believe, EMC Research Poll.
Okay.
So 92% of Georgia voters didn't believe that abortion should be illegal. So our numbers were a little higher. And then
Okay.
that also goes with like the context of like how are we framing the question?
Yeah, right.
That all matters, and like what comes after that, and and like that makes me want to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
not getting into weeds, like
Sure.
when you guys asked that question, did you leave it open-ended for them to just name it?
Mhm.
Because there were points in our poll when we allowed them to we didn't state like categories, and we allowed them to name it.
We didn't
And-
allow them to name it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
but it still was like top 3,
Yeah.
and just to hear it like so high, like that was really huge.
Yeah.
And I want to say for Black men, the number was 86%. Actually, I'm
Okay,
looking. Yeah,
good,
it was
yeah.
86% of Black men in Georgia opposed Roe being overturned, with 79% opposing Georgia's abortion ban.
Mm-hmm. Now, also, y'all, when we're talking about polls, okay, look, the crosstabs is who
Yeah.
you polling, it's the sporadic voters, it's all of those types
Yeah.
of things, and so it's really you're targeting who you choose, but all of the numbers yet and still are
Are-
very promising, right?
Exactly.
And even the AJC, I was trying to mention this earlier, they just released a poll showing that healthy majorities of every age group supported making it easier for a pregnant person to have an abortion as well.
So the plurality. Sorry.
Look,
Listen,
I tried to say that word earlier.
Did you?
Plurality.
Yeah.
I did it better that time, but
You did. You killed it.
I don't know how I did that.
Okay,
I
you
just
got it
wanna-
for me. But it was there. So it lets you know that the majority of Georgians still are with us. But again, I haven't had a chance to dig in the back end of that. But
Mhm.
it all goes to context. But
Yeah.
we've already known 8 out of 10 Americans support access to reproductive freedom.
Yeah.
That is a NARAL like standard, and that is a number that has been consistent throughout like time. Like
Yeah.
it hasn't changed, and we run polls consistently. Hopefully
do.
we'll get ready to do another one soon to see like where the changes lie in the new world that we are in.
That's right. That's right. So thinking about like Georgia's Georgia,
Mhm.
but in the Southeast, how do we how do we measure up against like the rest of the country and particularly in the Southeast?
I mean, right now there's over 15 states with abortion bans, and we are one of those 15.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality of it. In the Southeast, we, if you look to the states that are to our west, we
Okay.
are becoming aligned with the Mississippi and the Alabama, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But in Florida's doing Florida right now, y'all.
Well,
Pray
you
for my
know.
friends out there that's doing the hard
You
work.
know, I'm so blessed to know that that Florida produced you.
I mean, I have some really
There's some
good
good folks in
comrades
Florida.
that are still fighting the good fight.
That y'all
And
fighting the good fight.
And I'm always thinking about like the work and how much time it took for Georgia
Yes.
to get where they are.
That's right.
So like we are now the roadmap to like it can be accomplished, but
It
you
can.
cannot
It's gonna
let
take
up.
time.
You
Yeah.
cannot let up.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say here and now, but Florida also has to let more people of color at the table.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's always been a problem. When I came here, it was so refreshing to see people from every walk of life, every background contributing, because
Yeah.
that is what these are the people that we're trying to change, and these are people we're trying to serve, and these are people we're trying to get the vote. So the people who we're trying to talk to should be reflective of the people who are at the table.
That made me think. I was having a conversation with a close friend of mine the other day, and he said that politics is the business of change.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, that's what I said. I said you need to put that on a T-shirt.
Definitely, I would buy it.
Trademark that or something.
I
Look, I
definitely would buy it because I mean, Florida now has a 15-week ban. I mean, and DeSantis, who will probably be running for president, and everyone's saying he is. I mean, at any point now, I expect him to possibly, come out with another abortion ban, and a full-out ban. I wouldn't be surprised if he came out with a full-out ban.
Yeah.
And that's what some of my comrades are saying in Florida right now. South Carolina had their abortion ban overturned.
Okay.
And so they're getting ready to go in legislative session. And so we can expect a fight with them. North Carolina, their poor governor's holding on strong for us. You hear me?
Yes.
So like our work in North Carolina
Okay.
has to be intentional and supportive. And so as the Southeast pro-choice, not just Georgia, but America representative, it's important that we are supportive to those other states so that we can also access the reproductive freedom that is needed, because we know we're not going to get it here in Georgia anytime soon.
Yeah.
And so that we have to make sure that we have the resources to get to those other places, and we keep those places somewhat close. Like, of course, it's not close, but at least we're not traveling to California or New York.
Yeah.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
So we have to make sure that we are supportive in the states that are surrounding us in the Southeast, because they have their own anti-choice politicians who are once again following this this framework that have been laid out to them by extremists, trying to control our lives and our bodies. So that is where we are.
I really am so encouraged at the way that groups like Amplify Y'all and others are not letting up. I mean, we have had a tough handful of years here in Georgia on the progressive side, for sure. And I think actually, and I'll even say I'm sure our Republican friends on the other side too are just like as tired
Mhm.
of our of our BS and then probably winning some elections that they didn't see coming. But it has been a long road for sure, and I think it takes tenacity to be able to do this, particularly in a state like Georgia where we got a runoff, and then I mean even last year we had the runoff, and then a few days later, well, we had the insurrection. Okay, we had the runoff, we had the insurrection, and then we had session.
Yeah.
3 days later or something like that. It was ridiculous. There was like no time to breathe, no time to let up. It was such a short window of time. And then again, I mean, thankfully, I guess we had half of a month or a few weeks or something like that to maybe celebrate the holidays. But you talk about the anti-choice politicians, but you also talk about electing those champions in the legislature, which I'm gonna wrap this to
Yeah.
the Reproductive Freedom Act, and that's something that the coalition is doing together, and I want you to talk a little bit about what that is and like who's the sponsor, like what
What's
yeah.
going on with that?
Mm-hmm.
I know some people are like, what is the RFA? Like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
So the Reproductive Freedom Act, in its simplest terms, is like repealing all of these 13 barriers to accessing abortion care and any type of reproductive freedom that are currently in our legislative body code.
Okay.
Repealing that
Okay.
at its simplest form. So
Mhm.
like repealing, there's a piece in there that prevents allowing people to use the ACA or
Mhm.
Medicaid to access like abortion care.
Yeah.
All of the simple barriers that I mentioned about the ultrasound and the right to know, all of those things are repealed. One of the other biggest things that I really love about a Reproductive Freedom Act that
Yeah.
we're going to start talking more about
Okay.
is that it's making it easier for people in rural Georgia
Yes.
to get the care that they desire
Yeah.
by allowing medical professionals the ability to have a waiver to do certain things.
Okay.
And so, and when I say certain things, just like such as like, sign off to give the abortion pill to someone.
Sure. Right.
Because it's so hard. Like a nurse practitioner cannot do that.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're like very minute and detailed things that are in the code that
Yeah.
prevents people from like doing this. In other states, it's so much easier to access
Yeah.
that care.
There's a few things that are in the bill, affirming that every individual who becomes pregnant has the right to choose to continue the pregnancy or have an abortion, prevents individuals from being criminalized for pregnancy loss,
Yeah.
and protects them from potential aggressive state or local prosecutors, which I know is a big
HB
one.
481, a lot of confusion around that.
That's right. That's right. Repeals all abortion bans throughout pregnancy, including the six-week ban.
Yeah.
Repeals bias counseling, forced ultrasounds, and mandatory delays. And you talked about that. Prevents providers from being prosecuted for providing abortion care. Expands the group of trained healthcare professionals who can provide abortion care, which I'm assuming is what you're referring to.
Regarding the rural
Yep.
part of Georgia.
Providing the additional options to navigate the parental notification law. And then you talked about the ACA, so allowing more insurance plans to cover abortion
Yeah.
care.
Like you wouldn't believe it. Even so many organizations that does this work, like they have specific funds they have to set up for
Okay.
people who would like to get an abortion to access the care, because like it's not that the organization doesn't want to allow you to access an abortion. It's just because of the fact that the insurance companies do
Yeah.
not.
Okay.
And they cannot because of like the statute.
Yep.
And
Okay.
I learned so much in my time at Planned Parenthood. And
Shout out to Planned Parenthood.
I give PPSC so much love for the
Yes.
work that they've done in the training. But yeah, it's really mind-boggling when you go into like the details of like how many barriers are set up to deter you.
Yeah.
But also make you feel as though you cannot do something. And that's intentional once
Right.
again.
Right.
Because again, it's just like they want to create confusion.
Mhm.
I mean, the fact that criminalization piece is so important to actually state that. But there's still so much about HB 41 that we don't know
Yeah.
because the way it's written, so
Yeah.
much of it is like convoluted or it's not very clear,
Yep.
and they just
Well,
passing bad bills.
that's just, yeah.
They doing what they do. It really is.
So okay, we got the RFA, but we also know our progressive issues don't move.
Yeah.
And and that's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll be the losers or whatever. My former boss, Stacey Abrams, would say all the time, losing well. You got to know how to lose well. So we're losing well. And so it might move, it might not, but knowing that it probably won't have the votes, what's the strategy behind it if you know it's not likely to move?
Yeah. I mean, I think the way to look at it is kind of how we said, like, Roe was never the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this Reproductive Freedom Act is like our signal to Georgians that we are not backing down.
That's right.
That
Okay.
we are still here. We know what the issues are, and we're
Mhm.
still fighting for them.
Yeah.
Regardless if we get it heard in a committee or not, we got to get heard in a committee to go to the floor.
Right.
For everyone that's listening. But it's our signal to the anti-choice extremists and anti-choice just Republicans and people throughout Georgia that
Mhm.
we are still fighting and we're going to keep fighting.
Yeah.
And it's also a chance for those people who have been in the middle or those people who say they are progressive to go on record.
Yeah.
Because if you really care about reproductive freedom, I want to see if my legislators on that list of sponsors,
Mhm.
and you can go find that and you can go look online.
Yeah.
And if they're not, I need to contact them and ask them why, or tell them that I care about it. I mean, they should already know I care about it because, like, majority of Georgians do. We've
Right.
already said the numbers.
Yeah.
So because of that, we need to hold people accountable, and this is just
Mhm.
one other tool to use that's in our
Yeah.
toolbox.
That's
Like,
right.
it's never and or. It is and or.
Yeah.
It is and or. It's not just one
It's
thing.
not. Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. Thinking about the misconceptions about our communities and talking about folks that are in the districts. Obviously, we've done polling and we know. But what are some of the misconceptions about what communities care about access?
Yeah, I
I
think
think we touched on it a little bit, but I think we can go a
yeah.
little bit deeper.
No, definitely. When we talk about what communities care about access, like the thing about reproductive justice is that you care about the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
You care about the person being able to like pay their electric bill. You care about the person being able to get a job. You care about the person as a whole individual. You care about where this person lives and if their air is clean.
Yeah.
That is the beauty of reproductive justice and the work that they do. And I'm so happy to be a part of like this, like not just like being a part of NARAL right now, but having been a part of Planned Parenthood and seeing the shift with all of the other organizations moving towards that holistic framework.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're going with that,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like at its most fundamental, like reproductive freedom is the decision for somebody to decide when and how to establish a family. I mean,
Yeah.
but you can't do that if you don't have all these other boxes,
Mhm.
checked off. If I'm unable to care for myself, how can I care for another child?
Right.
So like that's where we are getting with the reproductive justice movement, and you see more people using reproductive justice framework in their work because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
It like now that is something that we have to do if we're really going to change people's hearts and minds,
Yeah.
because I think that is the biggest things when it comes to like Black men and things that we've seen in focus groups
Yeah.
is that Black men are like, I want to make sure that my sister isn't worrying about how to feed another child when I'm already helping her take care of her 3 kids that she has.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are so family oriented
Yeah.
in the way that we move, especially as Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always worrying about the people that's closest to us.
Yeah.
And that is how Black men look, and that's how Black men see reproductive freedom and access when it comes to abortion rights.
Because I think the entire argument or even thought around abortion access or even the ability to have an abortion is, you can either want to get abortions because you is as a form of birth control,
Mm-hmm.
or you just want to be able to write a ticket to just kind of live in this life of sin. And I mean, we know we're in the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
like we believe, and we've got believers and
Yeah.
things like that, but this is so far past just trying to have sex,
Yeah.
premarital sex, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this is about healthcare.
Yeah. And I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, they are radicalizing religion.
Yeah.
And if we want to be frank, they're really radicalizing Christianity.
Mm.
I mean, I'm going to say it. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why you have organizations doing so much deep work within the religious sphere. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you have to talk to these pastors, and you have to make sure that they're educated and they understand it. We got a little easier with our Senator Warnock.
Yes.
I mean,
I was just about to say.
because we have to name, this man was a sex educator. That was one of his first jobs.
Mm.
So he understood what was at stake. He
Yeah.
understood it from a different lens. But yes, Senator Warnock is amazing. He's great. But we need all these other pastors
Yes.
to like have conversations with him, you know, and other pastors who get it.
Yeah.
And the only way we do that is that we have to start that conversation, continue that conversation. It's never going to be one conversation because the abortion stigma is still real.
Yeah.
And it's still something that like we're battling every day. I mean, I battle it within like people that have been in my circle. And it's much more so like, I will say like later in my Planned Parenthood years, and when I was like, you know what, we cannot not talk about this. Like, cause then it was just like, because like, it was like that thing where politics wasn't a thing that you spoke about at the dinner table. And I can share, like, I remember like when I first joined Planned Parenthood, how all of a sudden people was closest to me felt comfortable sharing their stories with me.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what? I had no idea. Like, I love the fact that you felt comfortable sharing that with me, but do you care about sharing that with somebody else?
Yeah.
Because someone else may need to hear your story
right.
and know that it's okay to make a decision that is best for you. But this radicalizing Christianity is something very different that is unseen and unheard of when you got people weaponizing faith in a way that isn't necessarily, you can't point to it in the scripture. And that is a fact. Like, so you have to be able to have those in-depth conversations, and people who are within that realm, other clergy people, enable them to do the same.
I think that's and I think that's kind of where it gets tricky for y'all too, right?
Yeah.
Because there are some folks maybe in the legislature or other leaders that y'all have to talk to that are either pastors or are big in their faith.
Yeah.
And so how do y'all like navigate those kind of murky waters with them? Because there's the more religious framework, but there's also like the protection and healthcare framework. And do y'all like approach it more from that perspective? I guess it's all really from that perspective, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes, it's definitely all of the things, because it just goes back to the, like, you're not going to have just one conversation with people.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, when I first moved to Georgia, that was one of the biggest things that I felt like was missing from the movement.
Okay.
People were just, like, pretty much telling people how to vote. And, like, we were not having conversations telling them, like, why.
Yeah. And those may not be easy conversations.
What the consequences behind that are. And I remember meeting with, at the time, Representative Shannon, who's amazing reproductive justice leader, and Representative Park Cannon. And they were like telling me some of the people they had to have real hard conversations with when HB 41 was coming up.
Yeah.
And that let me know, and it kind of gave me a guide, some type of guide to start having conversations with people. Because, like, I don't want these people only hear from me when I want them to vote some type of way. And then it's like, okay, you just want something from me. And I've had someone literally tell me, like, these people came to me and they told me they didn't vote. If I didn't vote this way, I wasn't going to get elected. You know? But it was like, but these people didn't help elect me.
Right.
And that was true. And I was like, everything you said was valid, but I do not operate that way.
Yeah.
Like, I would never come at someone like that. But it was like, okay, so, you know, tell me what your hesitations are, and tell me why you feel this way. But majority of the time it was because people were radicalizing Christianity more so than
Okay.
healthcare. They got it when you talked about healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, do you understand that this procedure is less invasive? And if we're even talking about procedures,
Sure.
because it's
Right.
not even that many procedures. Like, to
Yeah.
be honest, when we're talking about abortion access, majority of it, people are getting access due to medication abortion.
Yeah.
Because there's some preliminary findings that are coming out that 90%
Mm-hmm.
of the abortions in the past 2 years,
Okay.
if HB 41 was enacted, would not have been done.
Wow.
90%. So when I say majority of abortion care that is done here is due to medication abortion in like 6 weeks, that's
Mm-hmm.
nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be seeing very shortly how people are truly impacted because of this.
Can you talk a little bit about HB 41?
Yeah, so HB 41 is the 6-week abortion ban that also has some criminalization pieces in there, criminalizing providers, criminalizing people possibly trying to get access to abortion care. I'm trying to think. I think like that is the biggest piece
Okay.
at 6 weeks, like
Mm-hmm.
before most people know they're pregnant. Like those are the talking points that you hear most people talk about.
Yeah.
And because of this new law that has been enacted immediately after Roe fell,
Mm-hmm.
our Attorney General Carr and Brian Kemp petitioned
Mm-hmm.
the court and was like, "Can we now enact this bill?"
Yeah.
Right now, the ACLU, Feminist Women's Health Center, Sister Song, and Planned Parenthood Southeast advocates are now challenging the law. Challenging the law due to like a privacy provision. I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
best person to speak about
Sure.
that
Yeah.
entirely right now. And so now this is about to work its way through the courts, and we'll hear more coming soon from them.
Okay. Maybe one of my last questions is thinking about, reproductive freedom and maternal health care. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, and
Yeah.
even like Black maternal mortality rates. Whether this is a good place or not to raise a child, like how do you think Georgia does there when it comes to um, family planning and even being a parent or a mother of a child? And
Yeah, I mean, we don't make it easy for people to access the
mm-hmm.
healthcare that they need, period. Like, just stopping there.
Yeah.
I mean, and we talk about maternal mortality rates. Georgia's one of the worst in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you look, we're 49. Some places have 50. Like, that is mind-boggling. And then we touched on it earlier when we were talking about rural hospital closures.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not even just rural, because we just had a trauma center close here a
Yeah.
couple of months ago inside Atlanta, inner Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So now you only have one trauma center for the entire metro Atlanta.
Yeah.
So these are like real issues that people are facing, where we have a governor that has not expanded Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
We had to fight, and and when I say we, like the reproductive justice coalitions, other organizations that care about maternal mortality have really been fighting for years for postpartum Medicaid expansion, and we just got that like last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna name, we got that once a Republican legislator
Mm-hmm.
took over that bill
Yeah.
that Democrats have been pushing for years.
Yeah.
Shout out to Representative Renita Shannon, Representative Park Cannon, for all of their work that they had been doing for years, and then Representative Ava Mabel as well.
Oh, yes.
Like,
yes.
this has been a year-long, like years, this campaign has been going on for years. So this is the work that has been going on before like it became a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about raising a family, you have to look at all of these other barriers that people face. So not even mention that Brian Kemp on the campaign trail basically mentioned something about possibly banning birth control, and it was
Mm-hmm.
recorded.
Yeah.
So like, and then he's also he's also gone on record about IVF. So you want to make
Mm-hmm.
it harder for people to like
Yeah.
have kids now too?
Right.
So which one is it? Do you
Yeah.
want us to have the babies or not? Like, but ultimately it's our decision.
Mhm.
Like, why are politicians trying to tell me what to do with my body?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really sad that this has become politicized in this way. I mean, it's always been political, but over the past couple of years, the way that it's ramped up has just been really, really atrocious.
I have so enjoyed our time together.
I hope you did.
I
did.
did. I'll see you at the Beyonce concert. So tell me, how can folks get involved? I mean, obviously, even talking about polling numbers and
Mhm.
things, but folks care about this issue. And I think one of the things we've seen, even in our organizing, in our deep work, whether you're at the legislature, you're just across the state,
Yeah.
doing your mobilizing. How do people actually get involved? Because folks say they
Yeah.
want to volunteer, they want to get involved,
Mhm.
but I think one of the hardest things for folks who don't know about maybe the space that we may occupy, is like, what do you actually like? How do I actually do anything in it?
Yeah.
So tell the people how they can get involved.
So, of course, follow us on all the social medias. NARAL Pro-Choice Georgia, GA. That's
Okay.
it. Our website is prochoicegeorgia.com.
Okay.
And of course, I'm going to throw out my comrades. Abortionislegalingeorgia.com. That incorporates us as well as the Amplify Collaborative
Okay.
and all of our RJ partners. And we are constantly updating our sites about information regarding, like, if you want to learn more, if you want to know what reproductive rights, reproductive freedom, reproductive justice is, what
Mhm.
are those differences? And you hear us using all of these different terms,
Yeah.
because there are distinct differences. Join us, like, sign up to, like, come to a meeting if you want to have a one-on-one. Like, we make it really easy, and Amplify is always hosting monthly meetings. I want to say that NARAL organizes on the ground as well. And so they're always looking for people to have conversations with. Like, you don't necessarily have to go to the Capitol because everybody can't go down to the Capitol.
Right. The way that Capitol set up.
But what you can do is that we can text you and you could click a link to email your legislator and you can let them know how you feel about something. Or you may be the person that's like, okay, I have a few friends. I can invite them over and let's have a conversation about reproductive freedom and what that means.
Yeah.
Because then that's a different type of strategy of removing stigma from talking about abortion access.
Mhm.
So, like, we have so many creative ways for people to become involved in our movement that doesn't necessarily require you to walk and
Mhm.
rally with a sign, because that's not everybody
That's
thing.
not everybody's thing. It's not
Like,
everybody's judge.
I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm not a big rallier, but since, like, having come into this role, I'm usually the person that's planning the rallies,
Yeah.
But before, like, I was good for, I'm good for going to the Capitol. I'll even make a call,
Mhm.
but you want me to go outside? Like, you don't. It's so many other things that come with that. So we want you to feel comfortable to be a part of this space
Yeah.
in the best way that feels right
Right
for
for
you.
you. That's
And
right.
we guarantee that there's a way that you can become helpful. Even if it's just continue to have the conversation. And even if you just sign up on our email list, if you're having conversations with people, you are shifting the conversation and the
That's right.
culture.
That's
And
right.
that's ultimately what the work that we have to do.
Mhm. It starts small. It
Yeah.
starts small.
I always say small victories matter.
They do.
They do.
That's all we really have. Can we be honest? Our little small victories be leading up to big
Listen,
victories.
they do.
They
They
really
definitely
do.
do.
Yeah. Y'all have a petition for the RFA.
Yes, we do. So it's also on the Abortion is Still Legal in Georgia website as well. And
So it's abortion is still legal in Georgia.
sorry, I think I just messed it up, actually. .com. What can I get it? Abortion is legal in Georgia.
Okay.
.com. I got it.
There it is.
Got it.
Okay.
So,
Another thumbs up.
yes. Abortionislegalingeorgia.com. And then on there's you can learn about RFA, and then it could also take you to the petition.
Okay.
And so with the petition, we're just asking people to sign up so that we can, like, probably at one point we have a few ideas of how we wanted to show our
Mhm.
legislators that, hey, people in Georgia care about this issue.
Right. Thank you.
Thank
you for your work.
No, thank you. You guys are doing amazing work as well.
I appreciate
I'm
that.
just happy to be in community.
Here we go.
Because we all make it, like, we all make this hard work so much lighter. Because if we really want to talk about 2020, like in 2021, it would never happen with Ashley Robinson and the work that you did at the America Votes table. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. We can't do it without y'all though. But seriously, the work you and the Amplify Georgia Coalition is doing is not easy, and we recognize that. And our team at Progress Georgia, I mean, we work to support you all and the work that y'all do, but it is not easy, and you all are fighting the good fight every day. And so I really, really just thank you on behalf of myself, but also Georgians, for what you're doing and how you're making an impact in our lives. So thank you for everything.
No problem.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, everybody, this is our time. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Alicia Stallworth with NARAL Pro-Choice Georgia. And you got a lot of really good nuggets from this conversation. I know I definitely did. I kind of feel like you schooled me a lot on a lot of things. I mean, Progress Georgia, we have to know a lot about a lot of things, but I think I know a little bit more about one other thing now. So thank you so much for that, Alicia. But you all, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, see you later.